All right, good evening, everybody. What we're going to do today, I've had a couple of questions about this throughout the Unit 9 and throughout the Unit 9 material, was how to type in a compound interest problem into a calculator. So before we actually plug it in, I just have an example problem here. So first things first, we look at our compound interest problem, or we look at our formula. Compound interest is your A, which is the amount that you accrue, or the amount that you have, equals the amount that you put in, that's your starting amount, that's your principal, times 1 plus R over N, which R is your rate, and N is the amount of times it's compounded per year, all raised to the N times however much time you're investing in it. So A is equal to P times 1 plus R over N raised to the NT. Now also too, the values for N, those values you got to be familiar with. If your problem says compounded annually, then that means your N value is 1. Compounded semi-annually, N is 2. Triannually, 3. Quarterly, 4. Daily, 365. Hourly, 8,760. The most common ones would be semi-annually and compounded quarterly. Those are the two most common ones. So how would we do a problem like this in the calculator? Well, let's take a look at an example real quick. Let's say right here for this problem, say you put $12,000 into a bank account at an annual interest of 9%. How much money will you have after 5 years if it's compounded quarterly? So basically, how to actually interpret this into the formula, 12,000 would be your P value, that's your principal. Your interest rate, your R is 9%, but since it's percent, you've got to convert it to a decimal number. So 9% would be considered 0.09. Your T would be 5, and since your problem says compounded quarterly, that means your N value would be 4. Now, how we plug this into the calculator? Okay. Now, on this screen, I have the TI-84 graphing calculator. Every calculator works differently, but definitely be familiar with your calculator. So, when we go over here to our graphing calculator, we use the formula P, which in this case is 12,000. So 12,000, open the parentheses, times 1 plus R divided by N. Now, R is your rate. R is your 9%. But remember, it's a decimal. Now, since we have a fraction right there, it would not be a bad idea to open up another set of parentheses and then do your fraction. So in this case, it would be 0.09 divided by compounded quarterly, which means your N value is 4. Now, since we just took care of this fraction right here, we can now close our parentheses. And then we close our parentheses one more time. Okay, that actually denotes this big parentheses right here. And then we have to raise it. So we use a little exponent, use a little caret symbol right here. Open the parentheses again so we can section off our exponents. N times T. Now, N was 4. And your T, your time, was 5 years. So 4 times 5, close parentheses yet again, and enter. So in that particular case, if we have $12,000 and we invest it at a rate of 9% after 5 years compounded quarterly, we should have roughly $18,726.11. Okay? So let's take a look at another problem. So this one that I have right here, I'm just going to do a piece of it. So let's say you have $100,000 invested at 6.5% interest, compounded semi-annually. So it's this problem right here. Okay? Let's see how much money we would have after, let's say, 4 years. So if we take this problem and plug it into the calculator, we use the formula. So our initial amount is $100,000 times 1 plus your rate, which is 6.5%. So as a decimal, 0.065 okay, divided by your end value, which compounded semi-annually, which means your end value would be 2. So you close parentheses on that little fraction, and then you close the parentheses again, and then you raise it to the n times t. Now, we said your n was 2, and it's being invested over, we said, 4 years. So 2 times 4. And close your parentheses for the exponent, and there we go. We should have about $129,157 after 4 years. Okay. The bottom line, when you're doing your calculator, make sure to put your parentheses. Make sure to group, because you have to speak calculator on these. You've got to tell the calculator, hey, I only want to group this together and not this and this. Okay. Parentheses are your best friend when you're using the calculator. And with compound interest, I strongly recommend using the calculator. Whether it be a graphing calculator, whether it be a scientific calculator. I don't recommend calculators usually, but compound interest is the one type of problem that I strongly recommend a calculator for. Okay? So hopefully this might have helped out a little bit. Most calculators actually use this format right here. That's why the TI-84s and the 83s are very popular calculators. If you have the TI-30 or any kind of brand of the TI-30, they work very similar to this. Okay? So as always, let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to help, but definitely be familiar with whatever calculator you have. Everyone's got different calculators, but you got to be familiar with them.